The base is dropped on a somewhat overcast, not the most exciting Friday morning, July 19th. Getting ready for a busy weekend around MLS. Jason Longshore, John Nelson here with you this morning. We'll get you set for Atlanta and D.C. on Sunday. We'll also get you set for El Tráfico and every other wild match around the league. You've also got the Portland-Seattle rivalry, the Cascadia Derby, kicking back off on Sunday night. That one's been lost in the shuffle a little bit. You haven't had a Portland or Seattle player say that they're a Ferrari and other players are Fiats or anything like that.
So. God.
Yeah. We'll get into all that, but let's get you caught up on what happened last night and start to look ahead around the league for the weekend. And last night, you had two matches that were the first one not the most exciting. DC eventually gets the big win over Cincinnati. They had to work for it a bit. Cincinnati got a really weird penalty call and whole situation around it. I never saw a great angle of what Baldomero Toledo saw or what the VAR saw to see. I think it was Paul Arriola to see if his arm did come away from his body. They looked at it. They held up the penalty. They said, yeah, we're going to take a look. Oh, no, it's good. Okay, penalty. And then in the run-up on the penalty, Emmanuel Ledesma stretched every bit of stopping, not stopping on his penalty run-up. It's one that by the letter of the law, I think it's right to allow it, but it doesn't feel right, even though he had his, to me, stop in the run-up. It was before he was in a position to take the kick, and there's a little bit of wiggle room in the interpretation of the laws of the game on that one. I think that probably needs to be cleaned up because kickers should not be allowed to do what Emmanuel Ledesma did, in my opinion. Ended up not mattering because DC scored again to retake the lead a couple minutes later, and they end up winning big. There's some questions about Bill Hamid, though. Stephen Goff of the Washington Post tweeted out that he was benched for being late to a team meal or a team meeting. Ben Olsen didn't confirm that after the match. He said it was just Seitz' turn to play. Very curious about that one, John.
Yes. And how lengthy the fallout, and I put the word fallout in quotes, is going to be because of it. Is it just, yeah, I'm going to sit you out for one? How serious is it? Is it going to be sit you out for two? How is it going to be
out
received?
For 2 games for being late to a meeting or a team meal? You're kind of overdoing it a bit.
And then from there, what's the response inside the locker room with teammates, and how does him not being involved in a win against a team that you should have beaten in the first place, how does that play going forward? So, yeah, interesting subplot when it comes to Bill Hamid. But, yeah, for me, most of my eyes were drawn to the penalty run-up and pause and continued run-up with the penalty attempt last night. So, yeah, I'm there with you. It's like,
well,
it
ultimately,
felt
it's
goofy.
not. It did, but ultimately it's not that important because that's about all Cincinnati had last night. Lucas Rodriguez gets a couple goals. Nice goal from Wayne Rooney on a great ball from Leonardo Jara. And what jumped out to me looking at DC as Atlanta prepares for them is they played, I mean, on paper you probably write it down as a 3-4-3. I thought it played a little more like a 3-6-1 because your wingers were tucked in more. They were trying to find the vertical channels in between the central midfielders and the wingbacks, who were very, very wide. And I think it's the wingbacks that make this system work for DC. Donovan Pines has come in to play center back with Briant and with Birnbaum and given them the option to play 3 in the back. Pines is going to be a good one. I think he's still raw, still makes a few mistakes, but you can see the promise with him. 6'5" and crazy athletic. Pines is going to be a really good center back for a long time. But it's the wingbacks that make this team work. And the comments coming out of DC were that they were going to go for the 3 points against Cincinnati, and then they were going to figure out Atlanta as they got here. So how much do they rest? How much do they rotate? What do they end up doing with that lineup? Bill Hamid, I mean, it's a question. You would have assumed that if Seitz was going to get a game, that it would have been the one in Atlanta, not the one in Cincinnati, but maybe you decide to flip it if you want to have Bill Hamid with some other, rotated players in front of him, because we know Bill Hamid is an outstanding shot stopper, and he's probably going to see some shots if that's the case. We'll see what happens. Let's talk about the nightcap. Orlando on their heels the whole time. They rotated their lineup very, very heavily. They get a goal late in the first half against the run of play on a really kind of weird one. And it's just all Portland, but they can't find an equalizer till fairly late, and it's a 1-1 draw. 26 shots for the Timbers, 2 for Orlando City.
And the goal from Ebobisse that gave you the 1-1 draw, you putting it into a small space, he hits it off the inside of the post with his head, and it goes in, and you could tell for that final 10 minutes. If Orlando wasn't hanging on for the first 80, they were certainly hanging on for the final 10. When your lineup for Orlando includes 2 keepers, I think Grinwis and Rowe were 2 of the subs that you had available to you. And I say that in the literal sense just because of how the lineup was submitted. I give Orlando, I give James O'Connor, and I give that group all the credit in the world for going into a very tough environment, coming out with a point, and getting the goal that they did to get the lead. For me, I just sit there and it's like you went into a tough place, you rotated your side, you got out with a point. Good on you. And I know it was a rough point to get, and it was a rough point to hang on to, but good for Orlando City in this case.
All right, let's look ahead at the rest of the schedule for the weekend. And we start tonight in Los Angeles. It's El Tráfico, or whatever else you want to call it. 10 o'clock. Galaxy hosting LAFC. The Galaxy, they're 3-3 in their last 6. They're just all over the place, it feels like right now. LAFC's 10 points clear at the top of the Supporters' Shield race. They've scored almost twice as many goals as the Galaxy, but they've conceded 8 fewer. But the Galaxy have had LAFC's number in the 3 matches they've played so far. There's going to be a lot of eyeballs on this one. There's going to be a lot of, I think, just animosity between these two in the stands and on the field. I'm fascinated by how this one comes out.
Juicebox purveyors have LAFC at minus 167 to win in full time. The Galaxy at plus 333.
It's a pretty big number at home.
I look at this one and I figure that LAFC was going to win eventually. I didn't think it was going to be blowout city. I thought it was going to be a lot closer than apparently the Juicebox purveyors think. I was thinking it was going to be a 1-goal match, but obviously if LAFC has it their way, they're going to have pedal down and try to just completely and totally outrace the Ferrari/Fiat and run them out of the building.
I don't think they're going to run the Galaxy out of the building. It's a rivalry game, so
right.
I don't know if anybody's going to be able to run anybody out of the building. I think it's going to be a wild one with lots of twists and turns. It's a big one for the Galaxy in the grand scheme of things because of that up and down nature they've been going through here lately. They've got to find some consistency for a push because right now they're in third place, but 3-3 in their last 6. Minnesota's won their last 4 in a row, and they're 1 point behind the Galaxy right now. San Jose's hot, and they've beaten the Galaxy twice. They're 3 points behind the Galaxy. RSL and Dallas are a little bit further back, but that's 3, 4, 5. If the Galaxy don't get it together and get lapped by Minnesota or San Jose or both, they could be on the road in the knockout round. And they could be going to a San Jose where they just lost or going to a Minnesota. The Galaxy's got to put something together here. And I wonder where they're at inside that locker room because if they don't put a win together tonight, how do they respond? And that's the question is, are they kind of on that precipice right now? It feels like a massive game for the Galaxy more so than LAFC.
No doubt. And with all of the traffic, pardon the pun, behind them, you can't flinch. And we know that the West, short of LAFC, is going to be absolutely crazy. I mean, you're looking at, 8 points separating 2 through 8, 6 points separating 2 through 7 right now, north of the playoff bar. And then it gets even crazier as you go. And I think that I think you're right. I think this one has far more meaning for the longer term for the LA Galaxy this season than it does for the shorter term when it comes to this rivalry match, even though, yes, it is important.
7:30 Saturday, Columbus hosting Montreal. The Crew 1-13-2 in their last 16 games. 10 matches without a win at home. Montreal's lost 3 in a row as well. Samuel Piette was injured in their last loss to Toronto. This one's looking a little ugly.
Juicebox purveyors have even money for the Columbus Crew winning this one. Montreal at plus 260.
Yeah, I don't like it. I'd probably go draw if I had to put something on it, but it's going to be ugly. It's not one that will be on my TV screens on Saturday night.
No.
There's a couple other games at the same time to look at. One of them's in Philadelphia. Union hosting Chicago. The Fire have 1 win in their last 10, and yes, it was against Atlanta. Only 1 point in their last 2 against Cincinnati and Columbus, who are awful. Philadelphia, they had a bad loss on the road against RSL, lost 4-0. That's one that'll kick you in the pants a little bit. I would expect the Union would bounce back in a pretty big way, and I would expect that the Juicebox purveyors would agree with that.
Philadelphia at minus 138 and the Fire at plus 320.
Not quite as big as I thought it would be.
Yeah, I would have anticipated the margin being a lot larger, and I'm still waiting for what Chicago is going to do here for the remainder of the transfer window, considering what we have maintained since you couldn't get through the state of Ohio and where things are for them right now, what they need to do going forward for the rest of this year and starting into next year. So I thought that Philadelphia would take care of this one, probably another 1-goal game, if not 2. So I'm with the Juicebox purveyors, although that minus 138 for me seems a bit low.
Yeah, that's a little bit low. Well, I mean, it's good if you want to take it, but
yes,
yeah, I'm a little surprised by it. Toronto hosting the Dynamo. Houston goes to Canada, 1-8-0 on the road. Albert Ellis suspended after the red card here. Toronto's won back-to-back games. They've only lost once in their last 5. I don't think the Beard, the new 5% owner of the Houston Dynamo and Houston Dash and the stadium, James Harden, I don't think James Harden's going to be able to help them too much. This feels like a pretty big Toronto win.
Toronto at minus 154 and the Dynamo at plus 375, although I would love to see Harden and Josie Altidore going at it inside the paint.
That'd be a pretty good matchup, actually. I think if Josie's able to get a referee who allows him to be very physical, I think he could take Harden in the paint. But Harden gets him outside, forget it. Sporting Kansas City, FC Dallas, 8:30. Sporting, they've won back-to-back matches for the first time all season. Dallas, hey, they're only 4 points ahead of Kansas City right now. We've been very, very high on Dallas this season and in the youth movement and everything going on there. They're 8-5. They've only won 2 of their last 6. This is a big one. This is a really big one because if Kansas City wins it, they're only 1 point behind Dallas, and with the game in hand. Getting healthy has been the best thing for Sporting, and I think they're going to take this one.
No question. I'm with you. And you always wonder with a young team where that moment is in the season where things start to get into quicksand. And the Juicebox purveyors have Sporting at minus 134, FC Dallas at plus 350. And once you're in that quicksand, how do you respond and how long does it take you to respond to understand that the season's a little longer than it has been in all the other places that you've been? So I've got Sporting in this one too.
Just want to let everybody know that, yes, we're seeing everybody freaking out about reports from training and who's on the field and who's not on the field for Atlanta United. We're getting there. Doug Robertson's going to join us in 15 minutes. He's going to join us early. because there's a lot of folks talking after training today, and Doug's going to take his time with us early. So he'll give us the update. We're not going to spoil anything just yet. Colorado hosting NYC FC, 9 o'clock. NYC, they've lost back-to-back matches for the first time in 2019. The Rapids had 2 big comebacks in Portland in their last match to get a 2-2 draw. The Rapids right now are 9 points back from Dallas. It's a big climb for them. But they're one of the hottest teams in the league. And I'm not going to rule them out in this one against an NYC team that, you know, they haven't traveled all that well. They're 3-2-4. They're kind of struggling a little bit, but they're going to come in angry after a throw-in gate.
So then you might enjoy this one from the Juicebox Purveyors. NYCFC at plus 120, Colorado at plus 200.
That's a really good home underdog number. That is a really nice home underdog number. You don't normally see anything get into the plus 200 at home. That's intriguing.
Thought you'd like that one.
Very, very intriguing. Okay, we'll see. 10 o'clock Saturday, RSL hosting Minnesota. This is a game that I will be watching. 2 of the hottest teams in the league. RSL's won 3 of 4, all with clean sheets. Minnesota's won 4 in a row. 2 of the best teams in the league, honestly, right now. And Minnesota, hey, they're 2 points out of second place in the West. The Loons are legit. And RSL, they're battling with Dallas. They're battling with Houston. They're battling with Portland and Kansas City, who those footsteps are real coming up out of 9th and 10th place. But it's the wild up and down of RSL. They're 7-2 at home. They're 2-7-2 on the road. They're 9-9-2. They've got 29 goals. They've given up 29 goals. They feel like a very exciting average team, but they're very good at home. And Minnesota actually is not bad on the road. They're 4-6. I really don't know where this one's going to go.
Well, let's see which one you like more. The previous match that was discussed, or this one.
Okay.
Juicebox Purveyors have RSL at minus 106.
Okay.
Minnesota United plus 280.
Yeah, that's a teaser. That's one that gets your attention, but man, they're on the road at RSL is really good at home. Probably avoiding it. But that's one, if you're really high on the Loons, that is going to grab your attention and maybe grab your juice boxes. So keep it in mind. It's doable. I think it's a draw or an RSL win. I do think that home superiority helps RSL here. Vancouver and San Jose closes it out on Saturday night. The Whitecaps have lost 4 in a row. They've given up 14 goals in that stretch, and they've only scored once. San Jose, on the flip side, they've won 4 of 5, including 2 against the Galaxy in that stretch. What are the juice boxes saying about this one?
Vancouver at plus 210. San Jose at plus 115.
See, that's a home dog that I don't like.
Yeah.
Because of how bad the Caps have been. But
Correct.
That's a road plus number for San Jose that it's not bad. It's not a bad play. I think the Quakes get the win here. I just think Vancouver's wrecked.
Yes.
San Jose.
I'm down with that.
Yeah. Vancouver's washed. Cincinnati hosting New England Sunday at 6 o'clock. Revolution have not lost since May 8th. That's a long time ago. What happened on May 9th? Brad Friedel was fired. 5-0 loss to Chicago on May 8th. That's the last loss for the Revs. They're 5-0-4 since then. They're 2 points out of a playoff spot. They're 4 points out of hosting a playoff match. Cincinnati, hey, they'd won back-to-back before last night's loss, but they looked really bad last night, and they're going to be on shorter rest. They are at home. New England on the road, 2-4-4. Cincinnati at home, 3-5-1, so it's kind of a wash. I think the Revs get the win. I think the Revs continue putting the pressure on an NYC team in Toronto. That Toronto should get the home win. NYC's on the road. If Colorado wins and the Revolution win, then the Revs are in a playoff spot. Now, NYC has a bunch of games in hand. Don't forget that. But that's pretty good progress for El Brucio of New England. What are the juice boxes saying about it?
FC Cincinnati at plus 190. The Revs at plus 125.
Ooh, that's another underdog plus number for the Revs that I like, because I think they get the win. I think they get it kind of handily here. 7:30 Sunday, Orlando hosting the Red Bulls. Little surprising when you look at the Red Bulls in their last 6. They're 2-3-1. They had that 3-1 loss in Toronto on Wednesday. But while the Red Bulls are coming south from a game on Wednesday, Orlando's coming from Portland after a game last night. They did charter. They did talk about that on the broadcast. So chartering back to Central Florida, one of the longest trips in the league. They did field a second-string lineup last night. But it's Orlando and the Red Bulls. Orlando, I think, is going to do really similar to what they did in Portland and what they've done this season a lot. They're going to sit back. They're going to give New York the ball, and they're going to say, hey, what do you have? And that's been a recipe for struggle with the Red Bulls over the years. We'll see if they can do any better here. What do the juice boxes think?
Now, you might like this one, too. Orlando City at plus 105. Red Bulls plus 225.
Ooh, that's a big number in Orlando. Wow. That's surprising. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, picking either one of those teams to do well is a little painful. It gives you a little bit of heartburn, but that feels like a Red Bulls win in Orlando. If I had to pick,
draw
that's
option,
what I would take.
Yeah. The draw option, if you can get it, minus 138 with the Red Bulls, minus 300 with Orlando City.
That's weird differences. I think Red Bulls can get a win on the road here. That's a big one. Final game on Sunday. Big one. Seattle hosting Portland. Why does MLS do this? Seattle hasn't played a league match. They did have a friendly with Borussia Dortmund on Wednesday, but yeah, that doesn't really count the same. They had a league match on Sunday against Atlanta at home. Portland played on Thursday at home, but still on Thursday. So you have a big rivalry match, and you have one team that is sitting at home, waiting, chilling, hanging out, playing a friendly, playing some guys 45 minutes, 30 minutes, whatever. And then your opponent has to come in after playing in the midweek. They did this with Atlanta and Red Bulls at Red Bull Arena earlier this year. At that time, Atlanta had to come from Vancouver on a midweek, and it was a Wednesday at least, but the travel probably equalized it. Don't do this. Don't do this.
Who's the
MLS.
schedule purveyor?
It's bad because if you're looking at, it's difficult to do a schedule. You've got things that make it complicated. We all know this. But you have certain games that you want it to be set up to be as good of a game as possible. This would be one of them. Don't do this nonsense. Don't. So now you've got Portland coming in, playing Thursday, recovering today, training and then traveling Saturday, and playing Sunday. And Seattle had a glorified training session on Wednesday.
Kind of hanging out.
Stupid. Stupid, stupid, stupid for the product. Come on, MLS. You can do better. These games are high priority. You can do better with the scheduling. Seattle has to be a gigantic favorite here because of all this.
Minus 118.
Wow.
Portland plus 300.
Not touching it. Don't care.
Nope.
Plus 300, don't care. They're going to be tired. They're going to be gassed. They might be a little angry. But Seattle's 8-0-2 at home, and you've given them a big advantage. I don't like the scheduling at all on this, and I think Seattle takes care of business. That's something MLS has to get right going forward. You have to look at this stuff with how you structure the schedule on these types of games. One, this game hasn't really been talked about all week. I mean, that's a little surprising for Portland, Seattle, which has carried you as a league, to not even be talked about this week. You've got, on the MLS website right now, you've got the results from last night as your 6 features. You got your 2 results from last night. You got James Harden in a Dynamo jersey. Yep, that should be there. And you've got Bob Bradley talking about LAFC and the Galaxy have improved, but so did we. You've got Zlatan. This is just the beginning for El Trafico. And you've got young but dangerous LAFC highlight Efra threat. And I'm scrolling down to the other latest.
Vito Manone.
No Cascadia talk. I mean, it'll happen. It'll come up on Saturday, I would hope. But then, oh, yeah, you have a bunch of games. So it's just kind of lost in the shuffle. This is just bad scheduling and bad work here by MLS to get this game as big of a deal as it should be. Because this is the rivalry that, honestly, I think in 2011 when Portland came into the league, until you got to 2015 where NYC and Orlando came in and Atlanta was already scheduled and Miami was in the midst of their soap opera drama. This was the rivalry that brought a lot of life into the league, and it should not ever be an afterthought. And it should be scheduled with some protection for it to be as good of a match as possible. So very disappointed with all of it with this one. Don't sleep on it. Portland will be angry. Portland will be ticked off after back-to-back draws, again, in matches that they should have won with Colorado and with Orlando. They are going to come in with anger, but are they going to come in with any energy and any legs to get the work done? That's the part that we'll have to wait and see. Let's take a break. Let's get some updates from the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground with our friend Doug Robertson, who is there on site, and there are some updates. There are some things to talk about. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, July 19th edition. Getting set for Atlanta and D.C. on Sunday. Doug Robertson from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution is here to help us get ready for that match. How you doing, Doug?
I'm doing well. How about y'all?
Doing well.
Doing all right.
We hear there's some updates from the Children's Healthcare of Atlanta training ground about who is training and who is not training. And it's not Overreaction Friday, but maybe it should be.
Yeah, Joe Patrick and Chris Furmeister are both here. That is the big news about training today.
That's why I was
There's
overreacting.
overreaction.
Is that what y'all were talking about?
That was it.
Yes.
That wasn't it. I know there's a couple people on bikes off to the side,
Right.
which is,
you're
fairly normal practice.
Are you talking about George Bello and Ezekiel Barco? Is that who you're talking
That's
about?
what I was talking about.
Oh. Yeah, they were training with the first team today. Or they are training with the first team today. Training is ongoing right now. So, we've heard for a couple of weeks that Marco may be back, maybe back, maybe back. Well, at least for one day, he is back. We will see if Frank will tell us if he's going to be eligible for the 18 on Sunday, the same as Bello, or if, particularly with Bello, if he needs to go play with the twos this weekend, just to kind of get some game legs. They're really, I think we counted, there's only 14 players out right now training. Joseph Martinez and Leandro Gonzalez-Perez and Miles Robinson are just doing some bike work today. They're okay. I mean, I'm be stunned if they don't play on Sunday. They're just not training with the first team.
Just extended recovery. With this kind of schedule, you have to have some days like this.
Yeah, people shouldn't read too much into it, I don't think.
I think the one that is a surprise, for me anyway, is Bello, because we had heard Barco was getting pretty close, and he took the trip to Seattle even though he wasn't going to play. That's usually a good sign that you're getting kind of back into the group. Bello, we just didn't really know much, and him being out on the training pitch today, that's a really good sign.
Yeah, and it's odd also because Frank said on Tuesday that Bello and Viaba were kind of on the same timeline. Yet today, Bello was out with the first team. Still haven't seen – we saw Viaba in the locker room after the game the other day, but haven't seen him out with the first team yet. So either Bello came back a little bit faster than everyone thought, Viaba might be coming back a little bit faster than everyone thought, or Frank just had some bad information. I don't know which one is accurate.
When you look back at the last match and context, and I know that you and Jason got into it on the Southern Fried Soccer podcast, taking the obvious out of it, that it was only against a 10-man Houston side, what things can you take out of it also if you pull the context out of them putting 5 in the back of the net against a team that was a man down after 6 minutes? What other stuff stuck out to you in that first 6 and I guess that played through in that final 84?
Yeah, we did talk about it on the award-eligible Southern Fried Soccer podcast.
There you go.
It was interesting. Atlanta United created some chances, but then it also allowed 2 big chances to Houston, and Houston didn't take advantage of either. The second chance being the inexplicable miss by Hairston with an open goal and from about 3 feet away, couldn't put it in. It had the makings to be just a fantastically exciting, high-scoring game. And then the red card happened. So the thing to take away from it, if I were an Atlanta United supporter, is Atlanta United looked really, really comfortable in those opening 6 minutes in that formation, the 3-5-2 or 5-3-2 on offense. I think I wrote today that it kind of looked like they were being reacquainted with an old friend in that formation. So I would be surprised if Atlanta United doesn't use it against DC. I know DC has some good wing players, or at least Cincinnati made them look really, really good last night. But I think the formation will be used simply because they, again, are likely going to be without any true fullbacks. I'll be surprised if Bello is in the starting lineup. And it kind of worked for them against Houston.
Yeah, I think the lack of outside backs right now makes the 3-5-2 or 3-4-3 if you really want to get squirrely with it. You could go in some different directions with it, but I think 3 center backs feels like a necessity at the moment. The questions about DC, I mean, they play a 3-4-3 that plays a little bit more like a 3-4-2-1, to be honest. So I wonder if you try to match that up, but DC might rest players as well. That's why this one's kind of a complicated match on Sunday.
Yeah, I think DC is going to get Acosta back.
Yes.
He was serving a suspension. That the Cincinnati game last night was the final game of that suspension, and Acosta has terrorized Atlanta United. I know he's not having a particularly great season this year. I don't know if he's distracted by not being able to go to PSG or whatever, but he always plays well against Atlanta United. So I'll be curious to see what lineup they roll out. Teams, for some reason, tend to like to rest players when they come to Atlanta. We saw that with Houston's quizzical starting lineup.
Yeah,
so it's going to be curious.
Question from one of our listeners this morning, and I'll go ahead and put it in the segment. Elliot Beaven wants to know if we can call this game, Atlanta, D.C., a rivalry game like Red Bulls. Doug, what do you think?
Everybody keeps wanting to make everything into a rivalry. I don't quite understand it. I wouldn't think so yet. To me, it's the same thing that I keep saying. The games need to be meaningful. And Atlanta United and Red Bulls have had meaningful games because they've had playoff games. They've fought for the Supporters' Shield. Atlanta United and DC have had some good games, but no games that I think rise to the same level as those against Red Bulls. It's my same answer for Atlanta United Orlando if it's a rivalry. Playing in this U.S. Open Cup game upcoming is going to add a little bit of spice to it and has the ingredients to make it into a rivalry. But right now, I think Atlanta United's biggest rival is Red Bulls.
Yeah, I agree with biggest rival. I've said all along I think Atlanta-Orlando's a rivalry because of the feeling, and I don't think DC gets there. I think DC's probably next if you're looking at teams that get your attention if you're an Atlanta United fan, and maybe some of it's just because they've played 6 times. You know, they played them 3 times in each of the last 2 years. There's just more history there, and they are, probably next in terms of geography as well. So I don't think there's any friction. Like, I think it's fair to say Atlanta-Orlando has animosity between the two, and I don't think that's there with Atlanta and DC. You've just had a team in DC that you can't beat in their building, and now you have a building in Mercedes-Benz that DC hasn't played well in. So it just feels like maybe a little bit extra game, but it's not quite a rivalry just yet, I don't think, anyway.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
So I figured that's why I would bring that one to the floor. And then I know a lot of folks have also been getting into the discussion about the red card and Ailey's, and then also the penalty kick last night in the run-up in the Cincinnati game. But I guess let's go ahead and stick with the red. Doug, what did you think about the red to Ailey's?
I tweeted and have said during the World Cup, for example, that there has to be some leniency in the rules. Defenders have to be able to touch attacking players in the penalty box, as long as there's not an intent to kick or to knock down. But there has to be contact. Now, having said that, you cannot make contact with a referee. You simply cannot. There are rules about even groups of players approaching the referee. That rule is never enforced, but it is there.
Yeah.
So
that's like keeping 2 feet on the line on a penalty.
Yeah, I had no or doing the whole jump step thing we saw last night from
yes,
Cincinnati.
True.
I had no problem with the Elise red card. I can understand why Houston supporters didn't like it, but he did, bump chest, touch chest, whatever words you want to use with the referee. And that's just a no-no. You simply cannot do it. You can curse at a referee. We see plenty of that on television, but you can't touch him. And he touched him. So that's a red card. That's an easy call. And last night, the handball, I don't know, what is he supposed to do? He had his arm to his chest. The only thing I can think of, and the only reason I guess they didn't go to VAR, is when you watch the replay, while his arm was at his chest, he did lower his arm.
It moved
a little bit. But it was still at his chest, which is supposed to be then a part of the body, and therefore not a handball. I know that they've changed the rule or are changing the rule that anytime the ball touches the hand in the penalty box with the arm, it's going to be a penalty kick.
That's for an attacker. No, that very specifically, that's an attacker
that's for an
doing
attacker.
it. Yeah, defender, this is a weird one because I think by the new rule that MLS is not using yet because they're still on the last rule book, I don't think it's called a penalty. But because of that movement, I think that's why it got the call.
But his arm was still on his body.
Yeah,
it should not have been a penalty. And then the penalty kick, that was about the most egregious pause in the run-up that I think I've ever seen of a penalty kick.
Yes. That
should have been disallowed or retaken because people did point out there were some DC players in the box, but that always happens anyway.
It would have been retaken,
Anyway, Esteban Toledo, to me, along with Alan Kelly, and I tweeted this last night, need some sort of review, we need to give you a break. because their decisions this season have been very, very curious, to put it mildly.
Yeah, on the thing with the penalty last night, the leeway that I'm assuming Toledo used, if he judged it or if he just didn't care, I don't know. It's feinting to kick the ball once the kicker has completed the run-up. Feinting in the run-up is permitted. And a lot of referees are saying that because he was not ready to take the shot, that the pause didn't affect anything. I disagree. I think they need to clean that law up. You can't stop in the run-up. They need to make it very clear. You can't stop in the run-up like Ledesma did because it's unfair to goalkeepers. It just throws it off too much. And let's go ahead and throw in, since you mentioned Alan Kelly, Howard Webb said last night to Pro Soccer USA and Glenn Crooks that with hindsight, the referee should have stopped the game at that point and indicated to everybody to give clarity that the restart was going to be a throw-in. And he said that the verbal indication that Kelly mentioned in his post-match comment to the pool reporter, he said that was to the assistant, but no time to communicate to the NYC players. To be clear, and this is Howard Webb, there was no communication from the referee to the players. And Webb did acknowledge to NYC by email that it was mismanaged. So that's another one for Kelly, because he had the issue in Seattle as well that Pro came out and said, hey, he should have done this differently. I agree. I think Kelly needs a game off.
There was the poor handling of the final minutes of Atlanta United Toronto.
I completely agree. I mean, more judgment, but I'm with you. I think it's just a bad call. These are getting to the point where there's no way to explain them away. It's not just, oh, well, he made a call that, that was his judgment. It's, you messed up here on multiple mechanical things. So I know he's one of the top guys, but maybe he needs a break.
Yeah, it's hard to defend him at this point.
Yeah. Well, let's get to this one. Atlanta and D.C., Sunday afternoon at the Benz. D.C. could rotate the lineup. Ben Olsen hinted as much before the Cincinnati match. You do get Luciano Acosta back, and he is terrifying if you are an Atlanta United fan. Atlanta, I think you will see some different faces in the lineup. You saw a lot of players held out on Wednesday. They could start on Sunday. It's kind of a tough one to get into. John, you want to start us off?
Yeah. And
2-1, right?
No, actually.
Really?
If you want it to be 2-1, I'll give it to you, but I don't think there's going to
actually tell us what you think is going to happen in this game, not just make up numbers.
No. With Bill Hamid, I'm pulling goals off the board. I think Atlanta United gets one. I don't think that DC, with a rotated side, gets one, even though I know Lucho Acosta strikes fear in the hearts of every Atlanta United fan. I'm just going to go 1-0 Atlanta United.
1-0 Atlanta United. That might be the first time John's ever picked that scoreline and actually given an explanation as to why. I like it. Progress. Doug, what do you think?
What was the explanation for Hamid's absence in the 18? I haven't seen it yet.
Stephen Goff tweeted last night at halftime that he was late to either a team meeting or a team meal, and he was benched because of that. But Olsen didn't really follow up on that after the match, and I don't know what the questions asked of him were. So he said it was just Seitz' turn to play.
Okay.
I don't know.
My black velvet slipper lock of the week is Atlanta United 2-1 over
lock of the week.
You wanted the 2-1 scoreline.
I'm taking it.
All right.
And then I'm going to take the black velvet slippers.
Lock of the week.
If you take that one to the juice box purveyors, yes, you can get some black velvet slippers or driving shoes, whatever you prefer to call them.
Driving shoes.
Jarrett chimes in on the direct messages. 3-1 Atlanta. He says the home team continues to dominate this series. And Jarrett's reading my mind. I'm 3-1 as well. I feel like this is a game where DC doesn't have the legs. They're not as sharp because I don't think they have the depth. And they will rotate some pieces. My caveat would be if they play their wing backs and they play the same shape, they're going to be able to compete a lot better. If they rotate the shape because they want to rotate players, or they put different players in those wing back roles than Leonardo Jara and Mora, then they're going to struggle because I think those two guys are the keys to making DC function. And if they're not there, I just don't think they can function the same way. 3-1 Atlanta. I think Joseph gets 2 and continues his goal-scoring streak. And the other one, I'm going to go Justin Merrim again because I think he's really feeling it these days, and I think he'll be back in the team.
And Nick has 1-1, Hamid being Hamid.
Yeah, Nick's always the black cloud, so that's fine. Doug, what do you have coming up over at the AJC between now and Sunday night?
Well, I'll have a lengthier story on Bello and Barco's return, depending upon what information Frank shares with us,
Dun, dun, dun.
as well as updates on Joseph's elbow, which he injured or appeared to injure in the win against Houston. And then we get to talk to Joseph today. And I'm really curious to kind of ask him, I don't think most people realize he's only 4 goals, I think, away from Carlos Vela in the race for the Golden Boot.
Yeah.
If he feels like he's maybe flying a little bit under the radar this season, or I don't like the word disrespect, but maybe there is just kind of an oversight going on with Joseph this season and the quality he's brought to Atlanta United so far. It has been kind of a quiet but effective season for Joseph compared to last year, I guess because he got out of the gate so fast. So I'm hoping to ask him about that. Really, the quality of the story is going to depend upon his answers. If he's in a great mood, the answers are going to be fantastic. If he's not, the story is not going to be very good, to be quite honest.
This is true.
Joseph this season has been mostly fantastic. When he's in the mood, he gives the best answers on the team.
Yes.
Although we'll just have to see what kind of mood he's in today.
Hopefully feeling good after a couple goals. Been playing really, really well lately. I think his overall game lately has been as good as it's been since he's been here. He's been that outstanding, in my opinion.
And then we'll see whatever else. I just wrote a little brief about the Leagues Cup announcement yesterday that looks likely Atlanta United is going to be in some sort of international competition next season.
Right.
Either by winning the U.S. Open Cup or simply finishing top 4 in the East, which I think is probable. I know they have the 4th best points per game average right now in the East, and they've done that without, so many injured players that are soon coming back. So I think it likely that they'll be in either the Champions League next year or the Leagues Cup, which to me, it's almost kind of 6 of one, half dozen of the other, because you got to be the Mexico team in either one. So we'll see.
All right, and we'll have another chance to submit an entry to whatever podcast awards that we're submitting entries to with the Southern Fried Soccer podcast after the match on Sunday.
Always award eligible. I have no idea what awards
We'll have to find some.
that it's eligible for. I just know that because it's out there in the ether, it is award eligible.
Yes.
So that's always good.
Maybe we can get Bojangles to sponsor an award for us.
The Black Velvet Slipper Bojangle Chicken Biscuit Podcast
The
of the
driving
year.
the Chicken Biscuit Driving Shoes Award.
That
There we
sounds
go.
gross. All right. Thanks, Doug. We
Put
appreciate
one into
it.
the other.
We'll see y'all.
Take care.
Bye.
All right, Doug Robertson. Make sure you're following him, Doug Robertson, AJC on Twitter, Atlanta United News Now on Facebook. Get that AJC subscription because they are, I look around and when I see another newspaper beat writer at an away game, I get surprised. Like that's where it is. And Doug is there every single time. I think the Orlando Sentinel sent Julia Poe to Portland last night, which was really cool to see. It just doesn't happen very often. Even some of the big papers that you would expect. So the reason they do that is because they are making money from doing it, because it's all a business, folks. And if you are able to subscribe to the AJC, the digital, the Sunday edition, whatever works for you, support the paper because they have done a great job supporting soccer in the city. And if you want the truth, you go back and you look through archives, and I've been doing that a lot, researching the earlier days of pro soccer in Atlanta. They supported it back then, too. They were giving the Atlanta Chiefs, column inches in 1967 and 68 when nobody was giving column inches to soccer. They were trying really hard, and they're doing that again in a big way. So if you're able to support them, please do so because it allows us to have this type of access and this type of content, and it's a big thing for teams because the teams in this league that don't have it, I think it's kind of obvious by how many people show up at the gate for them. You can kind of draw some lines between the two. Let's take a break, come back. We'll get into a couple tweets before Mike Conti joins us at 10 o'clock to further preview Atlanta and D.C. Hang out with us. We'll be right back.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
John is thinking that Joseph Martinez would wear his velvet driving shoes. I have to disagree with that statement.
No, people. Doug took a picture when I came in shorts and driving shoes to one of the home matches, and Doug put it out there in the ether. Okay, so who is this? And some people actually responded. They thought it was Joseph.
Wow. I mean, wow. I got nothing to say.
Joseph going cash.
Joseph would have far more swagger than that.
Unless he was laid back on that particular day.
No, I have to question people who would think that.
Wish to go to the Twitters for a handful of...
Yes, if your Skype will cooperate.
Okay.
There we go.
You sound fine to me. Under the weather. I'm looking forward to Atlanta battling the DC Roonies. I'm expecting Escobar back on the right, Parkey at left back, Remedi, Nagbe, and Hyndman as the 10 in the middle with Miram and Petey flanking Joseph up top.
Yeah, could go back to the 4-3-3. I think a lot of people are freaking out about the 3-5-2 because it was against 10 men. I don't really care either way, Like, I'm not, married to one or the other, to be honest. It's what's going to work for the group that you have and which group is going to give you the best chance to win. Sometimes that might be a 3-5-2. Other times it might be a 4-3-3. I could easily see that happening. I think you'd want to keep Gressel in the team because of his good match on Wednesday, and if he's feeling good, you want him to play. I think you're going to get Escobar back in the team either way. Could you maybe decide to play Gressel as a right back? Yeah, you could. That's a possibility. Give Parkhurst a day off. I'd like to give Parkhurst a day off here soon because he's played a lot of minutes as of late. You could move Escobar over to the left if you wanted to do that. But I think there is a consideration you have to give to the way DC plays. It's a 3-4-3 on paper. Like I said, I think it plays a little more like a 3-4-2-1 because there's a little more separation in the forward line. And DC's a tough one to call because are they going to play all of those players that give them that shape, or are they going to rest and play in a different shape? And that's why it's difficult here. I think for Atlanta, you just want to play your best group for the day and then put them in a shape that makes the most sense. I honestly don't think you're thinking shape first. I think you're thinking 11 first. And what 11 are you going to go with? And then you put them in a shape and you play. That's it. I think that's where you're at the moment. The wild card would be George Bello. I think it'd be really early for him, and I don't think he's really in consideration to start. Maybe a run out late if he's feeling up for it, but the fact that he's training today is a bit of a shocker. Barco, you'd like to not have to go to him just yet and have him fresh for LAFC, but you could also say that you'd like to have him in a little more form heading to LAFC. So very interesting things coming out of this on both sides. I don't think it's going to be easy to pick the 22 players that start the match on Sunday. You might be able to get 12 to 14 of them correct. I think it's going to be that difficult between the two teams.
Michael Ruiz says, so now we have the MLS and Liga MX Europa League equivalent? Got it. Like it.
Yeah, I'm cool with it. I'm actually completely fine with it being that. I would have not liked it if it had been a chance where you play in both. I'd just rather not have those extra games right now, not with the current rosters. So if it's a chance to get international matches that are meaningful and not friendlies, if you come in second in the East or second in the West, yeah, I like it. I'm cool with it. I think it's a good thing.
Brian Barazdu says, I sure hope DeBoer can see that Gressel belongs on the right side. He wasn't that connected with Joseph since last year.
Say that one more time. Hold on. Nick dissing you in the direct messages completely shocked me.
No, yeah, that shocked you? It shocked you that
didn't
he's
shock
dissing
me.
you?
It just shocked me that I was like, oh, wow, okay.
Brian Barazdu, I sure hope DeBoer can see that Gressel belongs on the right side. He wasn't that connected with Joseph since last year.
Yes. And I'm gonna take like a minute here because we have Mike Conti joining us for a second. I think there's a very disappointing reaction from a lot of folks about Frank DeBoer like not being smart about the game. Stop. Like, he understands the game better than any of us. He does. He's experienced things that none of us have. So I think this thing about, I hope Frank DeBoer realizes this or understands this, or stop. Julian Gressel on the right side is very effective. It is. But you have to move a lot of pieces around to make that work. And do you do that for a player like Julian Gressel at the expense of an Ezequiel Barco, a Pity Martinez, a Justin Merrim, and multiple other players? Because Gressel is most effective in a 3-5-2 shape. That means if you play 3-5-2, you're playing Joseph up top. You have a second forward with him. It could be Brandon Vasquez, could be Pity, could be Barco. You have a number 10 or a third central midfielder. That could be a lot of different players. And then you're sitting a bunch of other guys. A bunch of guys. You're going to have a bench that could be Pity, Merrim, Vasquez, Hindman, or Nagbe, or Remedi.
Mo Adams.
Mo Adams is not going to start right now.
No.
Stop. But
he'll be in the 18.
No, stop. It's not about Mo Adams being in the 18. That's not the conversation here. I'm talking about the 11. We can come up with 18s all day. If you play a 3-5-2 and put Gressel on the right side, you have to sacrifice multiple other players to do it. And if that's the way that this team plays its best, that's the way they're going to play. But that's a lot for one player to play in his best position, and that's the part you have to consider. It's not that simple just to say it suits Gressel, so play it at the expense of 4 or 5 other players. It's not that simple. So let's take a break here. Let's get Mike Conti on the line. Talk more Atlanta, D.C. right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model, And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky and Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Welcome back. Soccer Down Here. July 19th, hour number 2. It's a packed Friday preview with all kinds of stuff going on around MLS, but a big one that we'll be watching and we'll be there on Sundays at the Benz, and we'll be calling it on 92.9 The Game, and I'll be sitting next to Mike Conti calling it. What's up, Mike?
What's going on, guys?
Not much. Getting ready for this match on Sunday. We were talking DC and how things look for... I mean, is it fair to say that they are the number 3 in the rival rankings for Atlanta United?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's Red Bull's clear number 1, and then I think you have 2A, B, and C. And if you were to come out of Orlando, New York City, and DC in any order, I probably could not argue against it.
I would.
Would you really?
Yeah, I think Orlando's 2, and then I think it's 3, A, B, A, and B.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah, I think Orlando's definitely a separate piece, just because of the animosity.
Sure. No, I get it. But, I mean, DC's owned you. I mean, they're 5-2-0 against you. Luciano Acosta has owned you. He has 5 goals against you in those 7 matches. The thing that bothers me about where Atlanta United and DC are right now is I think Atlanta United's been much the best over the last season and a half compared to them. But when you look at the head-to-head play, Atlanta's won 2, both at home. DC has won 2, both at home. But both of those home matches, there were conditions in play. Last September, Labor Day weekend, the pitch was very, very slick. Atlanta players had trouble keeping their footing. It was also a very hot night. And then obviously the conditions this year that both teams had to play in, but it probably was more of a detriment to Atlanta United than DC United, especially so because Atlanta United had very, very short rest, having played the previous Thursday. So, it'll be interesting to me to see these two teams in neutral conditions on a neutral surface with both teams having relatively the same amount of rest going into Sunday. How it's going to look. I think this is a real barometer game for both teams. DC beat Atlanta all 3 times they played in 2017. I feel like since then it's been a much more even matchup. And I'll be really curious to see what this looks like on Sunday because, if you would have asked me yesterday, I would have thought Atlanta United should be feeling really, really good going into this match. They have some momentum. DC's been wobbly. Then DC puts 4 on Cincinnati last night. And I know it's Cincinnati, but Cincinnati has played very well lately, especially at home. DC is excellent on the road, by the way, 4-3-3. So this is going to be tough. It's going to be a lot tougher than I thought it was going to be this time yesterday.
As we are wont to do in these situations, when it comes to previewing all of the matches on the weekend, usually what we will do, Mike, is we will go to a certain website. If you believe in wagering, say, juice boxes on a given matchup.
That's fine.
And we went over that in the first hour of the show, and it showed that Atlanta United to win was at minus 188.
Okay.
DC United at plus 425 to win in 90 minutes.
Yeah, and I think that's reasonable. Atlanta United, the people who come up with those numbers are watching from a very neutral perspective. And sometimes they're looking at numbers and trends, and they aren't necessarily considering a lot of the intangible things like momentum and feel. If you look at Atlanta United's form at home, the trend that they've won their last 2 home matches against DC United, I could understand where you would come up with that number. When you apply the intangibles, like how do you feel about dealing with Paul Arriola, who's in really good form right now? How do you feel about having to deal with Russell Canals and Wayne Rooney, who's having another outstanding season, and align that with what Atlanta United is still going through injury-wise? And I do understand that Barco and Bello were back at training today. I'd be shocked if Bello played Sunday, and I think Barco, at best, you're thinking maybe he'll be on the bench. So I'm not assuming that you're going to see either one of them in a starting role on Sunday. It feels like it could be a little bit closer than what the numbers and trends would dictate. Does that make sense? And I think the other thing, too, in Las Vegas is you have to look at DC's recent form. And, yeah, they did win last night in Cincinnati, but they've been playing to a ton of draws. So if they're plus 400-something, to get a win in 90 minutes on the road, I think that's reasonable. Because even with last night aside, they have really struggled to get wins on the road. But I think it's very, very tricky when you go with the numbers set by the odds makers, because they don't feel it the same way we do watching this team day in and day out.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one because of where it falls on the calendar as well. So both teams had midweek, but DC played last night. Assuming they're coming straight to Atlanta from Cincinnati. And Ben Olsen did hint that, they were going to put their first choice out in Cincinnati and then figure it out for the second game. They get Acosta back. Bill Hamid, you would expect to be back in the lineup. Not sure what discipline or not discipline issue there was. There's a little bit of conflicting information out there about it, but I don't think he's going to be out for 2 games because of it. So it's kind of hard to even get deep into this because DC1 has been pretty flexible in their shape, and if they're going to rotate players, who knows how they're going to approach this one coming in.
Yeah, and I mean, for a guy of Rooney's age and experience, you almost wonder if Rooney could be rotated out if they're really trying to watch his workload right now. Part of me wonders with the game on national TV if they would do that. I know that Ben Olsen is not obligated to put Wayne Rooney or a first-choice lineup out there because it is on national TV, but sometimes I know that is in the back of the manager's head. But anyhow, you know that Luciano Acosta is playing, okay? He's been suspended, for 2 matches? He got a red card and then a match on top of it. Am I remembering that correctly?
Yes.
Okay, so Acosta's going to play, and he's killed you. Okay, quite frankly, he has killed Atlanta United. He has scored 5 goals against them over 2.5 seasons. So even if they're rotating, that's someone you're going to have to worry about, someone you're going to have to deal with. Even if they were to, let's just say, rotate out Rooney and Arriola, just say those 2. Well, then you're still dealing with Canals. You're still dealing with Leonardo Jara, who was really, really good in March against Atlanta United.
He was really good last night as well.
That's what I heard. I'm about to watch the match, but it sounds like he was really, really good last night. DC's got a ton of quality. They really, really do. I like the way that this team has been constructed. I look at their roster, and it kind of feels like there are overtones of Seattle a little bit, where, you look at them 1 through 11, and wow, I mean, there's a lot of quality here. You got some national team players, and then unlike Seattle, you have a bona fide superstar in Wayne Rooney. Are they as deep as Atlanta United? Are they as deep as Red Bulls or some of the other top teams in the East that have a lot of depth? I'm not sure. I think we could probably have an argument about that. But 1 through 11, they're great. And, the Thursday to Sunday turnaround, yeah, it's tricky, but they're both road games. And as you said, Jason, if you go right from Cincinnati to Atlanta, you don't really lose much. You can still have a regen day today, train tomorrow, and then play on Sunday. I would assume they're going to go straight to Atlanta. If they go back to D.C., then I think you're being a little bit unnecessary in the amount of travel that you have to do. Heck, you can save money by taking one flight away. So we'll see. I think it's very, very intriguing. I think D.C. is kind of in that Philadelphia boat right now where you have to respect what they've done to this point, but you still wonder if the wobble or the collapse is coming. I still think the best teams in the East are New York City, Atlanta, and New York Red Bulls. But D.C. can prove us all wrong on Sunday if they go out and they get a result at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Only one team has won at the Benz all year across 14 competitions, and that's FC Dallas. And that's because Atlanta United gave up a very early goal, and FC Dallas was able to bunker. I don't see this match playing out in the same way on Sunday. At least I hope not.
When you look back at the match from midweek, I know that the biggest thing that we tell folks is not to take a whole lot out of it because it was a 10-man side for 84 minutes, and Chris Penso just pretty much changed the entire tenor of the match with what he did with Elise in the 6th. But I think one of the things it's safe to say that you could take out of it was probably and to create a word, the comfortability that the guys seem to have from an Atlanta United perspective with each other out there on the pitch, and the fluidity with which they were working, even though they were a man up. You saw some moments of cheekiness. I know LGP and the scoop comes to mind, and Heineman with some action there. But I think that one of the things that stuck with me was just the fluidity with the lineup that was out there, even though, yes, you were a man up pretty much the entire time.
Yeah, and John, it's tricky because I think you can make two true statements that might conflict with each other. It is true that you have to be very, very cautious in what you take out of a match like that because you're playing 11 on 10 for almost the full match. That is a true statement. It's also a true statement that Atlanta United did look very fluid and looked very good and went out and did what they're supposed to do against a shorthanded opponent. And it's also true that Atlanta United can take a boatload of positives from scoring 5 goals against a 10-man Houston. If anything else, it just gives them momentum. It gives them something to feel good about. You don't have to apologize for doing what you did to a 10-man Houston. That's out of your control. Go out and play and enjoy it and take advantage of the opportunity, and they did. And that's what I like to see. Beyond that, I think maybe people have jumped a little too far to conclusions on 3-5-2, on Gressel on the right, on how it looked with Heineman and the interplay with Heineman and Pereira going down the left. I think there you have to be a little bit more cautious because, playing against a 10-man team for 90 minutes, you're going to get that kind of space. But absolutely, I mean, Atlanta United, they looked like they were having a lot of fun out there. And this has been a very, very tough stretch for them. Even the matches they've won have been meat grinders. St. Louis was not easy to put down. Montreal, you have to get a late goal. It wasn't easy to put them down. You were, a minute away from getting, I think, one of the bigger wins in club history against New York Red Bulls because of the way you had to come back and do it and because of your history against them. And you blew it there. So, just to get something positive, I think is very, very important for this team. By the way, and Jason, I'm leaning on you on this.
Uh-oh.
Is it really true what Wilmer Cabrera said after the match, that the last time they had Penzo, he sent off 3 of their players and the coach?
I don't know if it was the last time, but it happened last August, yes.
And it was Penzo.
It was Penzo. It was a red card in the 15th minute to Fuenmayor, and Cabrera was sent off at halftime, and then 2 red cards in stoppage time.
Okay, so that's a little different.
One was if I remember it correctly, one was a really bad one on Elise, who was coming into the pull apart after an incident in stoppage time, and they said he threw a shoulder into somebody in the back, and I didn't think he did. So, yeah, 3 red cards and Cabrera sent off.
Wow. I mean, I guess there's no way to. It's not like when you give an Uber driver 1 star and they never pair you up with him again. I mean, I guess it's unavoidable.
Pro tries to avoid those situations, and that was just last August.
Oh, boy. Again, I mean, it is a shame that it happened in that way.
Could
but
he have swapped the referee crews for one of the 4 games on Wednesday?
Yeah, I mean, that's not that hard.
Mm-mm.
That's not that hard. But going back to what happened to Ellie's on Wednesday, it's unfortunate. I still think it was a harsh red, but it's a red that occurred, and Atlanta United took advantage. So looking at it from the Atlanta United perspective, you come good from what happened in Chicago. Now you're fine. Now you have some momentum where if you can get a win on Sunday, now you go to LAFC believing that maybe you can get a result out there. Whereas a week ago, maybe we're thinking that could be potentially a pretty ugly match. Now, you've got some self-belief. And it really is something that the defending MLS Cup champions would be doubting themselves. But if you listen to the external chatter, there's certainly a lot of doubt among a subset of Atlanta United supporters. So I think if you go out and you win, and even if you can win convincingly on Sunday, and that's going to be really, really tough to do, then I think it changes the complexion of everything going forward, where you go to LAFC thinking that you can get something there. And then, Galaxy will be tough, but will Zlatan play on turf? Possibly not. Then you go into Orlando.
Also, Zlatan is 1 yellow away from a accumulation suspension.
Yeah, well, maybe timing could work out where he could get
one in El Tráfico on purpose.
Exactly. Well, I don't know if he would purposely get a.
Well, they'd have one. They'd have a game in between,
right?
So, yeah, I think he gets one here soon, but when he gets one is going to be the question.
Yeah, and then you face Galaxy with Zlatan, without Zlatan. Potentially you'd really like your chances there. Then you go down to Orlando for Open Cup semifinals, where you'll be going for it, and then who knows? Maybe you've put together another run, but you've got to start somewhere. Can't start a winning streak without getting a win first. They've done it now. Now you've got to follow it up and do something against DC, or it's not really going to mean much from what they did on Wednesday.
It's going to be an interesting one on Sunday. How much do you think Atlanta changes their lineup? Not so much shape, but players.
Well, I have to think Escobar goes in. The tricky part about that, Jason, is if they make wholesale changes to their lineup, I think it would be because they changed the shape. So my guess is you rotate Pitti in.
Yep.
Escobar comes in.
Yep.
You probably give Parkhurst the day off.
I agree.
Again, I'm assuming Barquito is on the bench at best. I know he's training today.
I would agree with that. I think Remetti's in.
I think, yeah, Remetti, that great call. I forgot that. Remetti's in. So you probably rotate Lorenowitz out.
Yeah. Merrim?
I think Merrim for Pereira. But remember again, Frank, and I don't know why I keep getting stuck on this. Frank says he doesn't want to make any more than 4 changes per match.
Yeah, that's why I think the 3. Maybe the 4 with Escobar, Pitti, Remetti, Merrim. Merrim's the one that may be depending on the shape more.
Right. But if you go 4-3-3 and you bring those 4 in, then you would take out Parker. I think you would take out Parkhurst, Lorenowitz, Pereira, and
that's where it gets tricky because if you go 4-3-3,
Vasquez has played so well. Like
there's that part.
I love the 2 up top, although it really wasn't 2 up top. Vasquez was more in a free role. It really kind of felt like a 3-6-1 for a lot of the match. Wow. I mean, good problem to have. Now we're talking about a good problem. I mean, it's not like you're dwelling on your issue at left back and can you fill out a lineup and find 4 fullback. You aren't really worried about that now because you do get Escobar back. Very intriguing. Very, very intriguing. And I would expect the technical staff to be very, very cagey with this lineup again as they were on Wednesday, where we're not going to know until maybe the ball is kicked what the shape is going to be.
Yeah.
But I think you've got to get Pitti back. I think you'll obviously play Escobar. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think Remedi is very important. And I want to see Miram come back. Pereira did fine. Pereira was just fine. No indictment on him. I'd like to see Justin Miram get a game. And if Remedi comes in for Hindman, that could probably make some sense too if you go back to a 4-3-3.
It's going to be interesting because you do still have some issues with the left side and who you play there and how you shape it. I could see either a 4-3-3 or a 3-5-2. I could really see either one, and it depends on, I think for me, who needs rest more than anything. Parkhurst becomes really key in which way you're going to play the shape. So we shall see.
If you go 4-3-3, you still really don't know who your left back is, do you?
If you go 4-3-3 and you sit Parkhurst, I think you have to play Escobar on the left and Gressel on the right.
Okay. Yeah,
and
I would
that's
agree.
Not ideal on either side because we haven't seen Gressel play right back much as a true right back in a 4-man back line, and Escobar has only been on the left a handful of times as well.
Yeah, and then, Escobar going up to Miram, we haven't seen that at all. Gressel and Pitti on the right, potentially, I think that would be fine. But, yeah, you would have some real questions going down the left, which, again, makes me think that maybe 3-5-2 is the way to go, not necessarily from a tactical standpoint, but just a personnel standpoint. I would also say this. I mean, we came to the Park on Wednesday. I thought there was no chance Michael Parkhurst would play, and he gave you a full 90. So, let's not count out the possibility that Parkhurst has, gone down to not Ponce de Leon's fountain of youth, but Ponce de Leon's fountain of youth. And, maybe he had a little bit
by the way?
Over by Merrimack's.
It's by Zesto's. It's right in front of Zesto's, actually. Or that's not a Zesto anymore, right?
No, it's a cookout.
Cookout.
It's a cookout now. Yeah. I'm sorry. When they changed it from Zesto's to Cookout, they took the spring and they moved it down to Boulevard. So it's actually Boulevard Moreland now. So,
okay.
But you can find it. You just have to look hard for it.
Man, I'm gonna have to go find this.
Yeah. Trust me, all the matches we've done lately, we need it.
Yeah, we're going to need it down the stretch run with Open Cup and Campiones Cup and all of it. Oof.
Yeah. And, hey, we haven't even talked about Leagues Cup yet. How exciting, guys.
I'm okay with it. I'm actually okay with it.
I love it. I don't know why so many people are so negative about it. I think there's a way where, I don't know exactly when they're doing it, but it almost feels like, you're from the MLS side of things, you're managing it well by not making teams do CONCACAF and the Summer League, that it's one or the other. I think it's a great idea. Look, it's never going to become a big thing unless we treat it as a big thing. And I really think the MLS clubs are going to take it seriously. I don't know how the Liga MX clubs are going to handle it, but I'm excited about it. I think it could potentially be a lot of fun. The mechanics of the tournament, I'm curious if they'll play legs or if there's I doubt they'll do a group stage if they're going with 16 teams.
I think it's just going to be straight knockout.
Straight knockout, no legs. Well, then let's see how this works out. But it is kind of intriguing where if Atlanta United, for some reason, did not get into CONCACAF next year, you could potentially be playing in July against, I don't know, Cruz Azul or Xolos or something like that. Be a lot of fun. It would be something different. I think something the fans would enjoy.
All right, what's our broadcast timing and schedule for Sunday?
3:30, Five Stripes Countdown, kickoff. I've been told it's 4:08. I've been told it's 4:20. Not sure. But whenever they kick it off, we'll have somewhere it for you on 92.9 The Game. Yeah, somewhere in between. And we'll also be on Sirius XM channel 157. Don't forget, by the way, after the first team plays on Sunday afternoon, the unified team will play DC United Sunday evening. That match will kick off at 6:30. Stick around and support the Unified team on Sunday.
Yeah, that's a very cool reason
There
to
you
hang
go.
out a little while longer after the match. So please do that, especially supporters. Make some noise. It'll be the first chance they'll have to play in front of an Atlanta crowd and really, get some of that atmosphere. And these athletes really deserve it. They're a fun group, and they do work really hard.
Yeah, when they played at RSL, a lot of the RSL supporters stayed for the Unified match. I really hope our supporters do the same. You will enjoy it. It'll be a lot of fun, and those athletes are awesome. They deserve the support. They've gotten a lot of support from, Gressel and Guzan, and Breck Shea's been a big part of it this year. So I hope our supporters join in with that as well. They're going to stream it on Facebook Live. It'll be during our radio post-match show. So Matt Moore and I think Maria will do the commentary on Facebook Live. But watch them in person, make some noise, and really support them on Sunday.
Yes, and we will have a special guest on our AT&T Countdown to Kickoff as well.
Two special guests.
Guests.
We'll have Antonio Guzman of the Unified team, and we'll also be joined by Jeezy. So don't miss the AT&T Countdown to Kickoff at 3 o'clock on Sunday.
All the things on Sunday. It's going to be a busy day. I'll see you then.
Mike
Rick.
Conti dropping a Jeezy reference.
Hey, no, Jeezy's my guy. He's the East Atlanta Santa. We're good friends, so it'll be good to see him again.
He knows where that
Plus
fountain
the
is.
scarf.
That's right. That's exactly right. See you guys on Sunday.
Thanks,
Be
Mike.
good.
We're going to take a break. We'll get into the Twitter timeline right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service, Ad Council, and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, July 19th, getting ready for the weekend. It's a busy one. Atlanta United in D.C. on Sunday. It's going to be a busy day, too. I really do hope that people can stick around and support the Unified team. It's been a lot of fun to get a chance to see them play this season and in previous years, and getting a chance to have Antonio on our countdown to kick off again this year. Just a good guy, and he really puts a lot into it. He's a leader with that group. So I'm excited they're going to have a chance to play in front of fans, because the games they've played in Atlanta before, they had to do them early because of where it fell in the schedule, because they were late in the year and you had conversion to Falcons immediately happen after games. So they had to play before the game, before fans could come in. This is the first time they'll be able to play with fans still in the building. And if you have to hang out at Molly B's for a little bit, whatever it takes, like, try to stick around and and chant and sing and cheer for this group. I really, really recommend it. It's a lot of fun.
We have Twitters.
Let's get to the Twitters.
All right. John Roper. Watching the Orlando game, seeing another player having to be subbed out early in a game, while I understand that it had nothing to do with tiredness, I have to wonder how often early game injuries have increased with congested scheduling. Thoughts?
Well, that one was completely different because that was a head injury, and it was a pretty weird one, a kind of scary one, actually. Orlando handled it really well. No hesitation on the substitution. Referee handled it really well, had the crew out there very fast to get Alex DeJean checked out. I don't think it had anything to do with congestion because of this situation. It's a weird play from, I believe it was Fernandez as well, who was going for a very ambitious kind of heel kick and catches DeJean. There's no intent there at all, but he gets a yellow for it. I'm okay with that because it's reckless, but yeah, it's the actual issue with congestion and that side had nothing to do with this one. So separate issues. I do agree. I think that the schedule the way it is just going to increase the likelihood for more muscular injuries, hamstrings, quads, calves, those types of things, because you're playing a lot of games and you're traveling a lot, and it all adds up and it takes a lot out of your body.
Andrew Baker, soccer listening in Germany. If someone had said to you that Orlando City would have more points than Sporting at this point in the season, no one would have believed it.
No, nobody would have believed that. Orlando's better. Hey, look, Orlando, James O'Connor, it's not sexy time of football in Orlando, but it's effective. I mean, they're getting some results. It's defensive. They're so much better defensively than they have been in previous years. That's the biggest change. And credit to O'Connor because, that was the first move he could make was we've got to be responsible defensively. They've only given up 28 goals in 21 matches. They've got a +1 goal differential. These are big steps for Orlando. The other thing that's surprising about them as well is they're 4-5-1 at home. That's not good. But they're 3-4-4 away from home. That is good. That's impressive. And they're a difficult out. That's a starting point for them. They need more going forward. They need to be a team that can control the play and make things happen on their own. Yes. They need more explosiveness. Yes. But in previous years, their defense was just so bad that they had no chance. Now that's not the case. They're okay. They're ahead of Kansas City because of the injuries Kansas City's dealt with, and you got to give credit to Peter Vermees on that side because even with all those injuries, even with, I think it was about 7-8 games where they couldn't field a full bench and multiple games where they had to go to an emergency hardship call-up, which rarely happens for a field player. They're 6-7-7. They've got a -2 goal differential. They've hung around. They're 4-3-3 at home. They're 2-4-4 on the road. They're okay. And they get everybody healthy, and you get this dogfight in the West that is going to be between Real Salt Lake, FC Dallas, who are both on 29 points, Houston Dynamo on 27, Portland on 25, but with only 19 matches played and, quick math, 12 more at home the rest of the way.
Yeah,
and Kansas City on 25. Kansas City on 25, 20 games played. Colorado's not going to go quietly either on 20 points with 20 matches played. They're in a great run of form. They're going to be a spoiler, I think. But in the West, for me, it feels like 1 through 5, LAFC, Seattle, Galaxy, Minnesota, San Jose are a cut above. 6 and 7, 8, 9, 10, and maybe 11. It's going to be a dogfight. It's going to be a battle, and Kansas City will be in the thick of it.
Shiva, Atlanta needs to be very, very sharp defensively on Sunday. Rooney, Rodriguez, Ariola, Acosta, they all can hurt you when you give them space. I'm still not confident we look defensively sharp, even against Houston.
Oh, you can't take anything about Houston defensively because they didn't test you. DC, the question is how they rotate, who they rotate, and how they incorporate Acosta again. That's what I'm waiting to see from DC United when this lineup comes out. Acosta will be in it. I don't know if everybody else in that group will be in it. That's the dilemma for Ben Olsen. And I'd say Wayne Rooney is one of those that you have to wonder about a little bit. Is he going to give you 180 minutes, roughly? He came out kind of late in Cincinnati. Is he going to give you that many minutes Thursday, Sunday on turf at this stage of the season? Do you want to burn those minutes up now, or do you want to look ahead? Do you want to try to keep him as fresh as you can? They go to Chicago next weekend. Then they have back-to-back home games. Then they have 3 or 4 at home against Philadelphia, the Galaxy. They go to Vancouver, and then they come back for Red Bulls. Again, I know I said it earlier, but why is MLS doing this to teams? DC plays in Vancouver on the 17th, and then they come back to play the Red Bulls on the 21st. Another rivalry game, and you got a team coming back across the country. Why do you do this, Major League Soccer? It's just annoying. Can you not have teams play across on one side of the country on a Wednesday and then on the other side on a weekend? Come on, y'all. Come on. I don't know. But 3 out of 4 at home for DC after that. I wonder if you start thinking about managing Rooney's minutes. And that would be the question is, okay, do you start Quincy Amarikwa? Do you have Rooney available to come off the bench? How do you make that work? They played the same shape roughly against the Revolution as well in that match with Mora and Hara as the wing backs, Rodriguez and Areola as your 2 kind of inside forwards, playing not quite in the same line as Moreno and Canals with Rooney up top. Hara and Mora, for me, are the ones that make this work, along with Donovan Pines coming into the team and giving you, I think, more minutes than maybe they expected out of a young player. Pines is good. He's raw, but he's good. The last match before Pines came into the team and you saw the 3-4-2-1 or 3-6-1, whatever you want to call it, or 3-4-3, was in Dallas, where DC did not look good. They lost 2-0. Rooney should have been red carded. He wasn't. They rotated the team in that one in a pretty big way, where Griffin Yao, the 16-year-old, played. Ulises Segura played. Rodriguez played as a 10. It was a 4-2-3-1 with Canals and Moreno sitting in their usual spots. Briant and Birnbaum as your center backs. Mora and Hara as outside backs, not wing backs. I'm wondering if you see a team look a little more like that. Segura coming into the team, maybe Yao getting a start, Acosta coming back into the team. He could be the 10. I wonder if you try to manage the minutes for Rooney, for Rodriguez, and I wonder if you look at managing the minutes for Mora and Hara, because those are the keys for me. I think they rotate, and I think they might go back to a 4-2-3-1, 4-3-3 type of shape.
Michael Head, could not agree more with Jason on your MLS scheduling rant.
Yeah, just
because when we had to go to Vancouver, Salt Lake, and New Jersey in a week, that is insane. Doesn't anyone in the league office care about player health and match competition? Makes the league look minor league. I swear I could do better.
Yeah, it's just like you're gonna have these travels. You're gonna have these issues. They're going to happen. That's okay. That's fine. You're going to have to travel back and forth. We know that. Don't do it on short rest. Don't set them up to be on short rest. It's dumb. It's really, really dumb. Don't set it up to where you're playing in Seattle and then play Wednesday against Houston at home. Don't set it up to where you are, playing in Vancouver on midweek and then playing in New York on the weekend. Like, don't set those things up and try to equal out the amount of rest. Seattle shouldn't be playing at home against Portland, who's on short rest in this match. Atlanta shouldn't have been playing the Red Bulls on short rest in a rivalry game on a weekend in a high-profile game. Equalize the amount of travel for teams as much as you can, but at least in these games, these big showcase games, have teams on a normal amount of rest. Have teams on an equal amount of rest, and don't have them flying across the country. It's just basic stuff.
Let's see, and then Michael also says the Twos are in Birmingham playing the Legion this weekend. Is it a rivalry? Who's going? I'll be there repping the A with a bunch of my Legion friends.
No, very cool. I don't think it's a rivalry. I do think for Birmingham fans it's an exciting moment, and I think for them maybe it's a little bit more of a rivalry. I'm curious to see who goes, and this is where you get into an interesting spot with Atlanta United, and you've got the home game, but you're starting to get guys back. So who's going to move over to the twos to get playing time this weekend, as opposed to either being in the 18 and maybe getting in, maybe not getting in, or not playing this weekend? I think Andrew Carlton is one you would expect to see with the twos. I don't know if there's any others who have been in the first team right now who you might see go play with the twos on the weekend. Like Dion Pereira is one that I think is now part of the 18, and until you get your Barcos and Bellows back, I think he's in.
You see Bello over in Birmingham.
Possibly. That's one to maybe keep an eye on. We are starting to get more reports out of the training ground on these sorts of things, and we can hit those Twitters as well from Doug, from Joe Patrick. Let's start with Joe Patrick and his Twitter thoughts, if I could type and get them up on my computer screen in front of me. Joe Patrick has said Tito Villalba's week to week, according to Frank DeBoer. He will resume running sometime soon. If he feels well during and after those exercises, he will progress to working on the ball. So that's an update there. He has not returned to training yet. Bello and Barco are training today. That's progress for them. So if you're gonna piece things together and try to follow timelines, there is physical work off the ball first. There is work on the ball that is next. Then there is work with the team that is next, and that's the final step. So when you got Bello and Barco in there, that's good. I think Bello's different because he had a surgical procedure. Barco, it's recovering from being kicked in Columbus multiple times. And him, it's a little more, I think, comfort and being able to withstand the physical rigors. So both had a different type of recovery. And I think you're going to be a little more careful with Bello because of his age and his injury history as well. Doug Robertson tweeted that Bello's still 2 weeks away from the first team. So maybe Birmingham might be a little fast, unless it's going over to play like a set 15 minutes or 20 minutes or something like that. I don't think he's going over to start. That might be a little
to run in.
Yeah, maybe. And it's still a maybe. I think that might be next week.
Ricky Ricardo wants to know about the status of Alec Can. I feel like Brendan Moore's been in the last couple of 18s as backup keeper. Is Can being outplayed, or is he hurt?
No, he was sick. I think Doug had reported that he had an illness, so he was out for that. He was in the stadium on Wednesday in a box with some of the other players who didn't make the 18. I know he was with Mikey Ambrose, so he's here. He's around. He's just been sick, so that's what's kind of bumped him down for a little bit.
And let's see. Daniel Price with a prediction. He says 3-1. He says 2 from our Darlington. So I guess he's calling for a nag brace. And Joseph with 1 Mach 5 slide into the goal. Hashtag 5stripes5.
It's gonna be a tough one. I'm just really curious to see what DC does and how they shape it. Do they keep Pines in the lineup? I don't think he's done anything to take him out. Do they maybe go back to 4 in the back and give Briant or Birnbaum a day off? Birnbaum had a head-to-head collision. He had to be taped up. He didn't have to come out of the match. But you wonder about maybe any after effects of that. I do think DC will look very different player-wise from what they did in Cincinnati. Shape-wise, I'm not as sure, but player-wise, I think they look pretty different.
Percy Herrera and DeAndre Jackson say that East Atlanta Santa is Gucci, not cheesy.
I thought that too. I'm going to have to talk to Mike about that one.
DeAndre was like, glad I wasn't the only one who caught that. So apparently all of this, we can get into the discussion we had before we got on the show this morning. I would have no earthly idea who the East Atlanta Santa is.
John's just going to smile and nod, and that
pretty much.
He didn't know that Semi-Charmed Life was about crystal meth.
Nope. Did not.
I mean, they say
no
it in
clue.
the song. Like, it's there in the lyrics.
Nope.
And it's a filthy
Wasn't
song when
really-
you listen to the lyrics.
Wasn't really paying that much attention.
See, but that's how it got on pop radio, because nobody was paying attention to the lyrics. And, man, Stephen Jenkins told some tales in that one.
So that was, that was an education for me. So in the 30th year anniversary of The More You Know, that was one of the More You Knows for me.
Shocking.
I know. Really? We're caught up, by the way, on the Twitters.
All right, let's take a break. We're going to come back, finish up with some news and notes as we get ready for a busy weekend. Hang out with us. We'll be right back after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Final segment. Soccer Down here. It's been a long week. It's going to be a long weekend. We'll be back on Monday to wrap everything up from the busy weekend for an Overreaction Monday about Atlanta and D.C. But let's get into some of the news and notes we haven't touched on just yet. The whole Aaron Long situation in New York, reportedly, and there has not been a team attached to these, which puts some antenna up for me. But reportedly, there are offers around $5 million from Premier League teams or team for Aaron Long, center back, New York Red Bulls, U.S. men's national team. And the Red Bulls are saying no to that. And there was a report over at The Athletic talking about kind of the ifs and whys and hows of all of it. It's different than Tyler Adams, but I have seen this make the rounds, and I do agree with it. Tyler Adams went for $3 million. Tyler Adams was the Red Bulls' best player last year. I think the valuation of him and what he got, and yes, it was to another Red Bull club, but still, affects what they think they can get for an Aaron Long. I think they're thinking Aaron Long should be more than $5 million, and if you're a club, you would say, well, you sold Tyler Adams for $3 million. I'm not giving you $6 million for Aaron Long. And they've kind of affected their own valuation with that move. Long is in a spot where, he's an older player. If he's going to move to England, this would be his opportunity. I think he'd be successful in England. I think he'd be far more successful than Matt Miazga's been at Chelsea. I don't think he'd go to that type of club. I think he'd go to a mid-table to lower-table Premier League club and play. And I think he'd do well. I think he's got the game to play there. And what happens for the Red Bulls, and I think their argument is, he's a good player here. We got him under contract for 3 years. We don't want to sell him. That's all well and good until Aaron Long says, I want to be sold. Sell me. Oh, you don't want to sell me? Okay, well, yeah, I'm gonna not play, or I'm not gonna report to training camp next year, or yeah, I'm gonna be really ticked off. And do you want a really ticked off Aaron Long hanging around the team? That's where it gets complicated. So it's easy to say, well, we don't want to sell him because we want to win trophies. That's great, but players sometimes want that move, and you're going to have to deal with that balance. I think for the Red Bulls, if they can make it work and finesse the situation to keep Aaron Long for the rest of this year, they should try, because they're in a position that, yes, they can reasonably look at a run to MLS Cup. It's possible. So they should be in a position to try to make their team do that. Aaron Long's a big part of it. But I don't think keeping him for the 3-year contract is going to make a whole lot of sense. I don't think they're going to be able to pull that off, because he's going to want to go. And in a perfect world, you find a deal right now that you get the money you want, and if you can get 4.5 or 5, I think you take it. But it has a loan factored in for the rest of the season. So basically, you transfer him, but he finishes the year out on a loan back, or you don't transfer him until January, but the deal is done now. Whatever you got to do to keep him here the rest of the year, I think you try to do it, but I don't think you're going to be able to keep him here past that. So you got to be realistic about it if you're the Red Bulls. And Red Bulls can't think about U.S. men's national team, and Red Bulls can't think about what's good for MLS. Red Bulls have to think about what's good for Red Bulls. And I think selling him at the right time is good for Red Bulls. And right now might not be the right time, but I think it's going to really cause problems if you don't sell him by the start of next season.
And as you were mentioning Premier League teams, I was trying to sit here and figure out, okay, where would he fit and where would he go? And looking at there are a handful of teams mid-table where if you're looking at something that's a $5 million fee, even for the most financially strapped team like a Burnley or a Bournemouth, they can deal with that $5 million.
Oh, with the TV
pretty
money they have
easily.
Coming in, yeah, $5 million fee is nothing for really anybody in the Premier League.
And there are teams that just don't spend money and teams that are really pinned up against it financially. But yeah, the two that stuck out to me would be a Bournemouth and a Burnley. And to have him go over to the Premier League, I mean, seriously, if someone knocks on your door and they're the Premier League and it's like, yeah, we want you to come, and you're going to say no?
That's not the issue. I mean, Aaron Long doesn't make the decision. Aaron Long signed a new contract at the beginning of the season at Red Bull to stay for 3 years. So that makes it more complicated. Aaron Long, yeah, obviously would want to go. But Red Bulls also need to make the sale at the right time. I completely disagree with people who are just yelling and ranting and raving that, well, Red Bulls got to sell him right now. No, they don't.
No,
because
they don't
that's
have
doing
to.
it. But it's not. No, of course they don't. But that's doing a disservice to your fan base. It's doing a disservice to your players. It's doing a disservice to your club to say, well, if somebody's knocking on the door, we just got to sell them. Bye. You got to do it at the right time. He signed the contract before the year started. He didn't have to do that. So now you got to deal with the whole thing. They should do it in January. And if you can do it now and have him move in January, even better. But they're going to need to do it. But they have to do it at the right time. It's not about, well, the U.S. men's national team would be better if they sell him right now. Sure. The U.S. men's national team doesn't give the New York Red Bulls any money or any players or anything like that to win games. They're separate entities. The Red Bulls have to do what's right for the Red Bulls, and part of that is going to be selling Aaron Long at the right time. They have to do it at the right time. One player that's out there to keep an eye on is Jose Francisco Torres, Gringo Torres, former U.S. men's national team player who kind of fell out of favor, and I don't think he should have necessarily, although there was a glut of players at that position. He's available on a free transfer from Tigres. I think they've allowed him to leave. 31 years old. Kind of fell out of favor at Tigres. He's still in the roster for the team this past season that was very successful. Good player. He hasn't played as much in the last couple of years in Mexico. He can play as a 6 or an 8, maybe as a left back. Maybe he does the DeMarcus Beasley conversion to a left back. He's done it a little bit in his career. As he gets older, that might be the way to go. Technical player, good player. I think he wants to come to MLS now. somebody should snap him up. Shouldn't even have to think twice about it. Snap him up. He's a player that can help a lot of teams in this league. I saw Bart chimed in on this, and I wanted to mention it as well. Colorado Springs, they're building an 8,000-seat downtown stadium ahead of the 2021 season. That's their plans anyway, and mixed-use amenities will be part of it. Similar to what they've talked about in Statesboro with mixed use, similar to what they've talked about in Raleigh with mixed use, other places where it's not just a stadium, it's a project. And Bart asked, what USL team in the SDH footprint needs their own soccer-specific stadium like this? It's a good question. I mean, Chattanooga's doing it for the Red Wolves, so you can scratch them off the list. I think Memphis would be great with it if they could do it, but they're also in a downtown stadium in a baseball facility. But that's the one where you're doing it. You're not spending money right now on that stadium. I think Memphis will get to the point where it'll be the right move. Who else jumps out to you?
Yeah, see, when you were mentioning, for me, it's first and foremost, it's those teams that play in baseball stadia, but at the same time, you're looking at those kinds of the issues that are attached to it. It's like, okay, where's the space? I mean, honestly, I know why Indy 11 went indoors. I'd love to see Indy 11 back outdoors, frankly. The atmosphere that Lou City had when they were away from Slugger Field.
They're good. They're building an downtown stadium. They're fine.
Okay. Then, you look at the empty stadium when Bethlehem plays in Chester, but where are you going to put them otherwise? And I know why Swope Park is why Swope Park. I'm glad Hartford did what Hartford did.
Yeah, second teams are second teams. Don't even factor that in. I mean, Bethlehem and Swope Park don't factor into this conversation. And in the SDH footprint, I think maybe you're even looking more at cities as opposed to existing teams. Charleston would love to have something like this, but I don't know if they're going to be in a position to build anything right now, and they're going to have to make some hard decisions, I think, about what's next. There's also the conversation about MLS2 teams dropping to USL League One. You're starting to get more friction there. USL is going to have some things to figure out in that boat as well. But southern areas, cities, existing teams, not existing teams that I think could look at something like this. Memphis will eventually. I don't know how soon, but eventually. It's kind of like Louisville, where you play in the baseball stadium, you keep costs down. Then, when the time is right, you build when you can put it together. Memphis would make a ton of sense. Who else? Chattanooga's already doing it. Birmingham, I think, is trying to go in with UAB on some different plans about a football stadium. So push them to the side because they're talking. Charleston was the other one that jumped out to me. We'll keep an eye on Charlotte with all of the Charlotte stuff, but I think the Independents would like to get back into Memorial Stadium, which is a different situation altogether. But a lot of that's going to depend on what happens with MLS in Charlotte. Raleigh's doing something like this on a bigger scale, but they've also got some MLS aspirations, and they have NWSL to factor in. Asheville would be one that will need a new stadium if Asheville City continues to grow. They're going to need something more than what they have. I don't know if they're going to be downtown in that situation, but Asheville would be the one that at some point they're going to outgrow what they have. And to continue to grow and be who they are, you're going to have to make a step. And I'm curious to see what that could be for them. So that would be my outside the box possibility besides Memphis.
Yeah, for me, Nashville would just come down to space because, you and I go there and we see what they're doing with Memorial Stadium and the plans that they have for that space, and it's next to McCormick Field. But then you wonder, okay, where else downtown could you put something like that? I just don't think there's a space for it.
Yeah, I don't know downtown Asheville well enough to even guess. It'll be interesting to see. I think you're going to see more USL second division and third division teams build their own stadiums of appropriate size because it's how you make money at this. It's how you stay afloat. It's how you're sustainable. it's going to be interesting to see the long term with USL as well, with the second teams. I think there's a lot of things that both sides need to sit down and figure out, because the second teams, the partnership with MLS really did, if not save USL, solidify USL. And I think that has to be factored in. But there are very valid issues with second teams. Not so much. I mean, on the field, obviously, that's fine. It's the argument that New Mexico United draws 13,000 at home, and then they go play LA Galaxy 2 for a game that has 500 people. And you're trying to sell your team as a big thing in your market, but then you're playing games in front of 500. How does that work? That balance is tough to manage. So there's things to figure out. I think they're growing pains. I think they're good growing pains, but they are growing pains that have to get sorted out. Stadiums are going to be part of it as well. That's it for the week. Thanks, everybody, for listening. We greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thanks for all the great questions and interaction this week as well. That's the lifeblood of the show, and it makes us it keeps us going. It's a lot of fun, and it keeps us on our toes. So thank you. And thanks for so many people, like, disagreeing, but disagreeing in a way that you can actually have a conversation. I think that's
civil
an art
discourse
that has been lost in a lot of different areas in these days. And thank you for our listeners who do that, because it's a great way to bounce ideas off and just continue to grow the whole conversation, which is what soccer's all about. You know, it's all about these types of moments and all these conversations. You see it in every other country in the world, and I'm glad that we get a chance to have these conversations on a regular basis. So have a great weekend. We'll see a lot of you on Sunday at the Benz, and we'll be back talking to you on Monday morning for Overreaction Monday. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha driving shoes, y'all.